So I moved to America in February, March of 07. Scott Sharples was the interim coach at the time. There was me, Billy Jolliffe, Luke Madill, Jamie Gray. We all went over there. I decided to stay on. I know I was very fortunate with the first 8 weeks of being in America. I got a ride with Haro. And in that time, I'd met Barry Nobles. So me and Barry become thick as thieves. Barry was like the saviour. You know, he made me fall in love with riding bikes again. Man, we'd take trips to Woodward, and then he got me back inspired to riding the Supercross track to big hills, because he would be the most talented bike rider there is. Getting selected to go to the Olympic Games in 2012 was a big deal. I wasn't on the team for like 2 years, wasn't on the high performance team. And then Peter Maritzburg 2011 in South Africa, Haro funded me to go to the World Cup, and I got fucking second. I got second at a World Cup behind Joris. And that was a turning point. But leading up to that, I've been riding with Barry 24/7. I've been riding Chula Vista. Like, just riding with Barry made me better. In that Olympic selection period, it's a fucking first tick off the box. You know, I was the first cab off the rank. And then rooming with George, or Sam Willoughby, that World Cup season, we roomed together and we ate together, we travelled together, and I owed a lot to him for the Olympic selection. You know, he brought the dog out in me.
You have to have the right food, the right sleep. You're on the other side of the world. Be in the right headspace. You've got to have coaches telling you the right thing. You've got to be on that gate with 7 other people beside you and be waiting for this random beep, and you're wound up like an elastic band ready to go at any second, knowing that if you miss it by a thousandth of a second, the person next to you is going to get out in front and shut you down the first straight, and that could be your race over. Like, there's just so much pressure.
With the announcement of the Olympics, it sort of introduced more support and more resources to us. So obviously we had to have a high performance team. So with that high performance team, we got access to strength and conditioning coaches, we got access to sports scientists. I remember we were going down to the Australian Institute of Sport and having all this testing thrown at us, and you know, we thought it was great, because before that, it was just literally ex-pro riders just telling us, you know, what they've done. A lot of the time these guys were it was more like bodybuilding than it was actually training specifically for BMX racing. So to be able to go to that, to then actually have, you know, these people with PhDs telling us how to actually train properly, it definitely changed the sport a lot in regards to how we were training, how we were approaching the sport, and just the access to, I guess, those external resources that we never had before.
It was all about the why for me, was to provide opportunities to others to what I had in the sport, and like, I've had a great career, so how can I share that and provide a path and an opportunity for more people coming through.
Once it became an Olympic Games sport, all of a sudden the pathway from the ACT Academy of Sport to the National Academies of Sports, everyone had this feeder into the AIS program. So we all of a sudden had access to the top elite biomechanic support that we could have. We had nutritionists, we had massage people, there was physios. We all of a sudden had a full-time coach in Wade Boots, we had program managers. We became a part of a bigger family. So when BMX became an Olympic sport, all of a sudden it became part of a greater team. We were Team Australia, and we were part of every other sport discipline. I think initially we were really the outcasts. It was like, who's this first action sport coming into the Summer Olympic Games? The Winter Olympic Games obviously had so many action sports with snowboarding, but at the time BMX was the first Summer Olympic action sport, and we were the BMX bandits, we were the outcasts, and I don't think we were really taken seriously that we were athletes, we were training like weightlifters, we had intense amount of power and strength, we were getting out of the blocks just as quick and training like those elite sprinters. And yeah, we were obviously fierce out there on the track, and we were ready to take on this whole Olympic Games movement.
I think when the Olympics came into BMX racing, things got a little bit more serious, and I think, you know, Sean Dwight was the first high performance coach in Cycling Australia to try and ramp things up, and I was one of the athletes back then. And then right before the Olympics, Scott Sharples became in charge of the program. And then I think, you know, the cohort of athletes back then that I was a part of, like the Khalen Young, the Kamikazes, the Luke Madills, you know, crazy group of people to try and work with as a coach, if I think back now. And I think with Scott Sharples, like, you know, we were teammates on track Volkswagen as mountain bike teammates years ago, and that's sort of how I've sort of known Scott, and that sort of led into the '08 Olympic Games. And I think the selection for Olympics is always challenging. You know, you got to sort of jump through some of the hoops and make sure you hit the selection documents correctly and influence the athletes of what required, even though they think they should be going, but you still got to do these things to be selected. Running a program's different to actually being a trainer. You know, I think that's where some of the coaches struggle with. They're great trainers, but running a program is a lot more than trying to get them stronger or faster.